Hi, in this video I'm going to be delving into the Enneagram, what I found out about it. Basically, after about 2 months of researching into the Enneagram, looking at various sources, and kind of drawing my own conclusions, I wrote up a Google document, which I will include in the video, basically summarizing everything I found and trying to give a conclusion as to what I found. So, without further ado, the Enneagram is called is a short form really for the Enneagram of personality. Enneagram in itself just means nine-sided shape. And this shows personality characteristics, defense mechanisms, core fears, core desires, how to grow, and what we do when we're stressed. Included in this are core type, wings, tri-type with or without wings, instinct stacking, and Rob from Attitudinal Psyche has this thing called expanded instincts, which I actually quite like, but I'll get a bit more on all of those things later. I feel like it's a little bit important to touch on the origins of Enneagram and its history. So the Enneagram was actually brought to the West by this guy called Gurdjieff, and he was some kind of esoteric mystic, and he traveled across and said that he picked up this Enneagram system from the Sufi people, where it was not written down, it was oral tradition. I don't think that's been corroborated, but anyway, he brought it over, and it was not a system of personality, but actually a system of changes and a system of universal movement and rhythm, where things moved from the same structure was there, or the lines, everything moved in the same direction, but it's kind of like one moves to seven. That's like the move from constrained rigidity to freedom. And so the way he taught these was in abundance. So the way he taught these was by dance, and so yeah, there's a little bit of a backstory to that. And the reason I wanted to include that is because I wanted to say that I do think, given the real lack of scientific basis for the Enneagram and the lack of good research in the Enneagram, I don't think it's a good idea to get too deep into the Enneagram. This is something that I thought whenever I started to get into the Enneagram, and I told myself I would do. I still went down the rabbit hole of, you know, everything really. And now that I've come out through the other side, I have decided that I still think it's better to really view everything at a high level. Only take what works with you. If you can't find a type that you think you are, I would encourage you not to go looking for your type then, because it's not a scientific system. And people have differing points of view, lots of different details about it, and I think it's best to just not get overwhelmed with all of this, because ultimately that's just not going to be particularly useful, or getting at probably not getting at some kind of form of ground truth that will truly resonate with you. Okay, so here's some thoughts on the Enneagram. I think the traditional instincts, social, self-pressed, sexual, they seem to be not terribly valuable. I think most of what they do is they add confusion to core type, because they can take a core type and make it look very confusing. Like counter types, and well, this is the 5 that doesn't actually look like a 5, and this is the 3 that doesn't actually look like a 3, which is a little bit confusing and, in my opinion, unnecessary. And I think it just adds more clutter. I also think that the sexual instinct is, at least as defined by Enneagrammer and some others, is very narrow. And that's the reason why hardly anybody has this sexual instinct. And I think Rob actually does a good job here with the expanded instincts, because in his system, the 3 categories are purpose, self-survival, and interpersonal. I think these 3 categories are much more apt. And then within each category, there's 3 types. But I don't really plan on getting into expanded instincts in this video. But I actually do recommend checking it out because it's pretty solid, I think. And I think this reformation of instincts is much more useful than social self-pres and sexual, especially myself being somebody who is a purpose dominant that just doesn't resonate with social or self-pres or sexual. Okay. Also, for what it's worth, on the expanded instincts, I do think the stacking itself is kind of more important than the types that it goes down into. I think there's less value there, but again, I don't want to get into the expanded instincts too much in this video. I feel like wings are also a little bit clutterful, and I think they can really narrow in your thinking. Um, I mean, the types are just the types, and I think, I mean, if a wing works for you, then fair enough. But I don't think it's really necessary, and I don't find that it really adds too much. In my case, I definitely have balanced wings, and if I look around people, at other people, I think I'm mostly seeing balanced wings. So, not actually sure that it really helps, and I think it's yet another thing that can kind of narrow our self conception and make us um, limit ourselves by our beliefs of who we are. Okay. I think tri-type is intriguing, but questionable, because it creates a lot of categories, 27 to be exact, and even more than that if you want to get into the different orderings of tri-type, of the same tri-type. And I think, what's that? 27 times 6, I guess. That's a lot of tri-types. And so I think it creates a lot of boundaries. And whenever you have that, a lot of categories, sorry, whenever you have that many categories, it's kind of hard to track where the boundaries of each category are. And so for that reason, I don't really love it. But I do think it's an intriguing concept, but ultimately I do think it's also a little bit confusing, and I think I prefer to not look at it. So then there's lines of integration and disintegration. So some people say that, let's take the 6 for example, that goes to 3 in stress and goes to 9 in growth. Other people say, and I think even people who were previously of the opinion that it only went that way, like Russ Hudson, now say, okay, actually, there's elements of 3 that are good for the 6, and there are elements of 9 that are bad for the 6. So the arrows kind of go both ways. There's positives and negatives from each arrow. However, I haven't fleshed this out, but I strongly suspect that, I guess kind of going back to the mystical origins of this a little bit, that you could draw an arrow from any one type to another type, because we kind of have all of the types in us to some degree, and you could write a story about how you go there in growth or you go there in stress. And actually, I would say maybe it's not that you go there in growth or stress, but that going there stresses you out or grows you if you're taking on the right or wrong aspects of it. So I think whenever I personally say I get over competitive and I care too much about what people think of me, that makes me stressed and not the other way around. Now, I don't think I'm a 6. I type myself as a 5. The reason I type myself as a 5 is because the high level description matches me, and don't I don't think I fit the description of type 6. Plain and simple. And I think my defense mechanisms and fears and desires are much more in line with type 5, and I don't resonate with type 6 at all. Nonetheless, like I said, I think you can draw arrows to any of the other types from your type, and you can come up with a story of why that would have worked. I don't really believe in the sacred geometry aspect of the Enneagram because, like I said, I think it's just kind of arbitrary. Okay. Um, right. Also, proposed mechanisms of operation, such as layering on a bunch of different triads, I think is also another way that you can get muddled in the details and treating it like it's a specific science or objective kind of knowledge when it's really not. Also, as a side note here, um, I feel like the types are somewhat evenly distributed. So if I go into everybody I know, in fact, I have a list of some people I know here, and now I honestly don't know that many people, but they come out somewhat evenly distributed. Let's see, I've got a 6, 8, 7, 7, 4, 4, 9, 3, 5, 3, 5, 1, 3, 9, 7, 7, 6, 9, 3, 5, 9, 1, 6, 9, 6, 2. So they're relatively even. That's also kind of considering for the fact that some of these people are from my job, which is in a specific, it's in the tech industry as a software engineer and kind of um, a higher level job. And then also from the people in my family and the people I interact with regularly. These are the people who I've been typing, and so those are the people I on this list. And so, but you go outside and you can see a bunch of people of all the different types. I don't think it's very rare. I don't think that any of the types are particularly rare. I think they're all pretty well represented, I would say. And the thinking that they're not is kind of, it really reminds me of the SJ bad kind of thinking. They don't get us, the stupid SJs, the censor bad. So I would also say that if you come across a source that is typing most people as 6 or 9, and or frequently using the words attachment versus hexad, I would strongly advise avoiding that because they're very, very down to the details here. They don't strike me as consistent. A lot of people have had bad experiences with these, and honestly, just my impression was that, and I'm talking about Enneagrammer. Just to go ahead and say it, there might be others, but I'm talking about Enneagrammer here. I really got the impression the first time I read their website that there was some kind of type elitism and protecting their special types going on. I've read and listened to and watched much of their content now, and also read some kind of reviews about them on Reddit and sampled around the community to see what people think, and my opinion hasn't changed. So, yeah. All right. So, at this point, we're really only left with the core type in the expanded instincts as for what I think are really valuable and worth kind of taking into consideration. So, and I don't want to cover the expanded instincts. So that just leaves us with core Enneagram type as the only thing that I find actually like interesting or valuable. And that's also excluding lines of integration and disintegration. So that means it would involve the personality description, the basic fears, the basic desires, defense mechanism. I also think that the gut, heart, and head triads, as well as the withdrawn, compliant, and assertive triads, are pretty useful. The other triads are they're okay, but they're not great in my opinion. Okay, so how would I recommend typing people? I think the basic behavior of a person at a glance from a distance should hopefully line up with one of the types. I think a lot of the time it really does. It's not always the case, but it often is. So sometimes I think either the Enneagram won't be the appropriate tool for that person, or you might need to dig a bit deeper. I'd recommend not getting lost in minutia and missing the forest for the trees. Once again, because it is not a scientific system. It has not been verified with scientific studies. And the studies that do exist, I haven't looked at them, but just knowing how personality goes, I can guarantee you that they've not been very methodical. Okay, so I think if you're typing someone also, be sure to differentiate between actions and words. You want to listen to what people are saying, but you don't want to put too much stock into what people are saying. Because sometimes people have a weird conception of themselves. So you want to look at what they do, you want to look at their disposition, you want to look at their subtext, but I don't think you want to only rely on what they're saying, basically. Much like Voltology. My assessment of Enneagram, pretty good. I like it. I think there's a lot of insights about your type that'll reflect what you've experienced or felt or thought in life. If you look at the past and your present and you align with your type, you can kind of pave an appropriate path forward for yourself, knowing what the type can potentially live up to, and just kind of thinking, is that what I could live up to? Does that make sense for me? And I also think it helps you recognize when you're playing defense, because it brings your defense strategy for life. So, for example, and this is a personal example really, if you're a 5 and your significant other asks for your help with a task on the weekend, like, hey, can you help me? Can you help me out with this task during the weekend? Can I take your Saturday, basically? Recognize that the first thing that goes on in my head is, oh my God, like, that's so much of my time, and I don't want to give that time away. And like, blah. And then I start kind of going into this weird series of thoughts about, and I can start getting resentful. I'm like, oh, why does she want to take my time? But if you catch it out, because of course it's a worry for the 5 that they're going to run out of resources and have themselves intruded upon or exhausted. And so the response is to either put up a barrier and say no, which I often do, or you can say yes and agree to people, and then you can kind of secretly stir in resentment in the background. Secret option 3, when you're aware of this, is you can realize that your time and resources are not so limited, and that doing these kinds of things to help people enhances your relationships, which enhances your life, as much as sometimes the type 5 and myself would like to believe that relationships don't really play a role in our life. They do. More than you even think. So, yeah. So I guess I have a little bit. No, I don't really want to talk about the expanded instincts. Then I have quick descriptions of each type. I really only wrote a couple words here for each type. But I'll say anything more if I have anything more to say about them in the moment. Type 1, it's like this. They want perfection, they're idealistic, they're rigid, and they're critical. Critical of themselves and critical of others. The 1 will call you out if you do something wrong, or they'll go and bite their tongue because they're not supposed to tell you it's wrong. But there is a frustrated, tense, rigid energy to the 1. 2, they want affection. They want affection. They're giving, they're nurturing, and they're warm. They're kind, and they really want to help you out. And, oh no, don't worry about me. Typical mom energy. Okay, 3, they want achievement. They're efficient, they're busy, and they're goal-oriented. They want to look perfect. They don't want to expose their bad sides. And they just want to be awesome and look awesome. 4, kind of a sad sack. They want meaning. Not always, though. I'll just keep reading. They want meaning. They're artistic, longing for something. They often don't know what it is that they're longing for. It's just something's missing. And soulful. And so they can feel kind of soft and poetic, creative. A lot of artists would be type 4s. 5, they want understanding. They're cerebral, analytical, and detached. By detached, I mean mostly from emotions, but also they do detach themselves from other people so that they can avoid having anything requested of them. They're very knowledge oriented as well. Okay, 6, they want security. They're anxious. They are tribal, and they're responsible. So they're, taking care of the house and making sure everything is just taken care of, that you're going to be good and secure, the money's coming in, that you've got food and stuff. Um, and they're skeptical, questioning, loyal, and they might worry about what could possibly go wrong. Okay, 7, they want abundance. Their energy, I would say, is buzzing, and so they're just kind of buzzing with new ideas. They're inventive, innovative, and they have FOMO. So they're really worried that they're going to miss out on something interesting or something exciting um, in life. The 8, they want control. They don't want to be controlled. So they fight that by controlling others and controlling their environment. They're fierce, they're tough, and they're very often blunt. The 9 wants, a lot of sources say that they want harmony or peace, but it's kind of more general than that. The 9 wants, like, things to not change. They're very inertial. And so I say they want comfort. They're easygoing, they're unimposing, and they're relaxed. Yeah, they're just kind of chill. They're just chilling there. They're just sitting there. They're like, yeah, cool. Yeah, and so that's my rundown of the 9 types, and that's my rundown of all of Enneagram. I'm sure there's going to be people who disagree with me. I've, of course, read a lot of different sources that already disagree with me. So, yeah, but I just wanted to give my own personal opinion on that. It might change, but um, this is where I'm at for now. And yeah, I like to leave it nice, simple, uncomplicated. Yeah, so that's it. Thanks for watching, and take care.